Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Joe Bayern, Executive Director at Curaleaf.
Hi everyone, how are you? This is a pretty small group, so I'm gonna let you guys choose. I could either sit up here and do a presentation, or we could actually have a discussion and a dialogue. My name is Joe. I've been in cannabis for 4 years. Until May of this year, I was the CEO of Curaleaf, which is the largest cannabis company in the world. But I've got 20 plus years of consumer products background with companies like Snapple and Dr. Pepper and Voss Water. So I was going to just bring you through a little bit of an update on what's happening in cannabis, but we could do it like this, or if you want to come in, I'll actually come down here and we could have a whole discussion. Would you rather do that? Yeah. All right, come on in, come on. Okay, yeah. I'm happy to answer any questions you want. I don't think I even need this, but I'll keep on using it just in case people want to come in. I'll do a 5-minute intro on who Curaleaf is. I don't know if I could move the slides from here, but maybe you could just go through the slides. Curaleaf is the largest cannabis company in the world. We've been at it for a little over 12 years. We have 23 states in the U.S. that we operate in and 6 countries in Europe. Last year we did about $1.2 billion. We're vertically integrated. We have cultivation, manufacturing, and retail in most states that we operate in. So we're a vertically integrated company. If you want to go to the next slide. We were born out of a medical device company, so we've always been purpose-driven. We're here to help improve people's lives every day, and it's really exciting to get to work with an impassioned group of people. We have about 6,000 employees that get up every day trying to change the stigma associated with cannabis in this country and help people and their consumers and their patients. So we're a mission-driven company. As I said, our mission is to help improve lives, whether it's through education, products that we developed, working with local regulators, working with community groups to help dispel the myth about what's going on in the cannabis industry. If you go to the next slide, our vision is we want to be like any other consumer product company. We're building a CPG company. The only difference is we're using cannabis as our major ingredient instead of Voss Water or iced tea for Snapple, right? But we're building the same type of company with the infrastructure and the resources to compete with the world's biggest consumer product companies. If you go to the next slide. The whole key is that we're building it on a value-based structure, so people believe in the mission, and that's a really compelling part of our proposition. If you go to the next slide. For those of you who may or may not know, we think the U.S. Cannabis industry is a $100 billion industry. That's how big we think it is. And it's not that far off because today it's almost $70 billion today. And that's with the illicit market and the legal market. The legal market's about $25 billion today, and the illicit market's about $50 billion today. So that's before we start grabbing share from alcohol, pharmaceutical like opioids, which everybody knows is going to happen. It just hasn't started happening yet because we don't have access to high quality, consistent cannabis across the U.S. But every one of the pharmaceutical companies know it's coming, the alcohol companies know it's coming, and they're now starting to see how and the big tobacco companies are in it too. So today, over 90% of the U.S. population is in favor of cannabis legalization in some form, whether medical or recreational. That's evidenced by the fact that we're now in 21 states. 2 more states this week voted for legalization of cannabis. So it's the momentum is moving. But if you go to the next slide, you'll see we believe that this industry is at a tipping point. It's at an inflection point. Because although we continue to build momentum, there are a lot of headwinds that we face every day being in cannabis. First and foremost, we haven't gotten, even though 91% of the people want legalization of cannabis, we haven't gotten any meaningful federal regulation to actually help us, right? So we're stuck in this plateau we build out each state program, but we're at odds with the federal government. We don't have access to banking. We don't have access to the capital markets. We don't have access to some of the interstate commerce and things that need to build scale businesses. So we're working in a very suboptimal environment. We're starting to build some traction. I'll give you a little bit of heads up on what's going there. We're being squozen by, if that's the word, squozen down by the state regulators who are taking control. New York's a good example. They haven't even opened they voted 2 years ago to open up adult use program in New York. There's not one legal adult use dispensary open yet. So the illicit market is coming in and just has a free reign at the marketplace because they've decriminalized it, but they haven't actually created a legal pathway for anybody to buy. So they're pushing people. It's so ironic. They're pushing people into the illicit market. And they're complaining they're trying to legalize cannabis to get people out of the illicit market, but they're doing the complete opposite, right? As we talked about, the emboldened illicit market continues to take share. I mean, I was in California. I've seen people literally just load tractor-trailer trucks of cannabis and just send it back to New York and the East Coast. I mean, it's a big business now. The illicit market is a big business, and there's no fear of retribution because it's decriminalized, broadly speaking. One of the things that is a big hurdle for the cannabis industry is because we're a Schedule I drug, we have to pay what's called 280E tax, which means that even companies like us pay an 85% effective tax rate on everything we earn. Small businesses pay that same tax rate. So it's impossible to think of an ecosystem where small businesses could prosper in the regulated market when their cost of capital is typically upward of 20%. They have all these regulations they have to follow, which creates a lot of cost in their business. And they have to give 80% of everything they own to the government. So something's got to change. Something's got to change. And what is optimistic, so those are all the negatives. The positive is something's changing. And we think the Farm Bill, 2018 Farm Bill, is the thing that could actually help us change this marketplace. As you guys probably know, because you're at the alternate product expo and not at the Cannabis product expo, under the Farm Bill, we now could deliver THC products with 0.3% THC and hemp-based products with 0.3% THC. I personally believe that's going to be the way that cannabis is going to be legalized in this country, because more and more people are participating in cannabis-based products. They're going out to more and more mainstream channels of distribution, direct-to-consumer, and those are all the things that are precluding the cannabis market from growing in the regulated market. So we are now launching a new division for hemp-derived products, and we think that this could be a big opportunity to help normalize the distribution and normalize the experience around cannabis. I'll give you 2 seconds. You may know this. I'll go through it quickly. There are a couple federal bills out there. There's this CAOA Act, which was sponsored by Schumer, Booker, and Wyden, which was a very broad platform of legalization, which is really going nowhere. And everybody recognized it's going nowhere. It took them a year to actually launch the bill. Then they have the bill, and they're getting very, very little support. So we think that's going to fail and probably go away. But we do think parts of that can be passed this year or early next year in the what they call the lame duck sessions of Congress. So we think safe banking is got a very high probability of passing, which would open up banking to the cannabis industry, which is going to help. Not only from an operational standpoint, because we move hundreds of thousands, we're a $1 billion company. We move billions of dollars of cash around, and it's dangerous. People are dying because they're getting robbed in dispensaries through their distribution trucks. It's really a bad situation. Consumers have to pay cash. They can't pay credit cards. So there's a lot of limitations in the cannabis industry that will be fixed by the Safe Banking Act. Hopefully there'll also be a provision to be able to list on the U.S. exchanges. The irony is all the Canadian companies are able to access the U.S. capital markets, and all the U.S. companies are listed in Canada. So it's reversed, right? We should have access to our capital in our country with the real businesses, but we can't do that. Hopefully safe banking will do some of that, and hopefully safe banking we're seeing a lot of bipartisan support. So in the next budget session between now and the end of the year, we're hoping we're going to get some safe banking movement. You go to the next slide. You may have heard that Biden has just announced that he wants to look at the legalization of cannabis. It started with the expungement of anybody that was in federal prison. It's great, and we applaud this, but it was basically ceremonious and a very astute political move because there aren't many people in federal prison for cannabis possession. They're all at the state level, and it does nothing for the hundreds of thousands of people at the state level that can't get jobs. I think there were 6,000 people that were impacted by this expungement, but it started the ball rolling. So now he's actually got Health and Human Services looking at what it would take to legalize and deschedule cannabis. They've got to work with the DEA and the FDA. So there is some movement, but it's still years away from something happening.
It would be movement for transportation, and that would be federal, right? So this would apply to minors.
Yeah. This is only the federal people in prison for cannabis possession, but it didn't have anything to do with transportation, distribution, any of those things. That was a felony, and those are excluded from this. But again, it's getting the ball rolling, so that's good. If you go to the next slide, what we're looking forward is to the next version of the Farm Bill, which is the 2023 Farm Bill, and I think that could be used as a way to actually create some structure around this industry. This is my first show in an alternate product show, and it's amazing to see how sophisticated it is and how many people are here. It's really grown from really a small little segment of the marketplace who went out and started selling Delta 8, Delta 10, Delta 9. But now we need to put some regulations behind this, because left to its own, what's going to end up happening is if the industry is not responsible and starts doing things like testing and regulation for labeling, then the FDA is going to come after us and shut us down. I mean, we know that because we're dealing with the FDA all the time. So what I'm trying to convince people to do is let's be responsible. I know it's a great opportunity to go out and create products in a new segment of the marketplace, and no one's really enforcing, but they're looking and they're watching and they're going to at some point. And what we should do as an industry is be responsible. Let's test. Let's make sure we have some age gating on our products. There's no regulation about how old you have to be to buy cannabis-based, hemp-based products, right? We don't want to sell to minors. Let's sell to adults. Let's have high-quality tested products, and that will help us promote the industry. So when we get into the 23 Farm Bill, we can say, listen, we don't need a lot of your regulations. We're going to self-regulate, and we don't need Big Brother to do this for us if we're responsible. And that's the biggest issue, and I think is the safety issues that we're seeing. There have been a lot of CDC complaints about people who are taking Delta 8 and getting sick, and in some cases getting very sick because the chemical synthesis process wasn't done under the right environment, it wasn't done correctly, and people are getting sick from some of the byproducts that are in the products. So the next big thing is 2023 Farm Bill. We're promoting. We work with the U.S. Hemp Roundtable. We're trying to get the limits raised, not reduced, on the number on the cannabinoid THC cannabinoids that could be in hemp. We don't think it'll go backwards. There is some argument to get up to 1%, which is what it's like in some countries in Europe. But again, that's going to be a big push for next year. I think what I'll share with this group is it's a great time to be here because you're at the embryonic stages of developing a whole marketplace. And branding, I'm a brand person. As I said, I work with Snapple and Dr. Pepper, Cadbury, Voss. I think brands will win the day. People want brands that they trust, especially in an environment like this where there's so many different products. There's so much misinformation about cannabis and what it does or doesn't do. There's misinformation about hemp versus marijuana. I mean, there's just a lot of confusion out there for a consumer walking into a store. It's very hard to navigate, what cannabis can be used for. could be used for sleep. It could be used for energy. It could be used for depression, anxiety. It could be used for creativity. Just so many use cases. We need to start educating the consumers on what products are appropriate for what they're trying to do. And you can't do that in the regulated market because we don't have access to channels of marketing. We can't do TV advertising, as an example. You're not allowed. It's not federal. You have to do everything state by state. Every state has their own regulations of what you can say, can't say. So this opportunity here is a great opportunity because you can start building national brands, national companies for the first time. It's not existent in the regulated market today. People talk about brands, there really aren't brands. We're the largest, Select is the largest selling cannabis brand of all time. Today, that's our brand. We have two key brands. One is Curaleaf, which is our health and wellness brand, and one is Select, which is our adult use brand. They're two of the largest. Select is the largest selling cannabis brand of all time, but we're not branded yet. We're not a national brand. We don't have a high level of household awareness yet. So what I would tell people of this conference is now's the right time to go out and start building their brand. But if you want to build a brand, you have to build it on trust. It's got to be about trust. Consumers can trust your product. You're being responsible and creating quality products. You're not trying to take a shortcuts. Let's go out and actually build the industry correctly, and you're going to have a great opportunity. And in some cases, even get ahead of what companies like Curaleaf are doing, which they're a $1 billion company, but they don't have those brands. So I would say that's the message today. Great opportunity. The industry's at an inflection point. But we've got to be responsible. Let's work together to create an industry where people can be proud of, where we have free access to markets, where we have the ability to get the products into our hands of our consumers in an unrestricted way. But we have to work together to do that, and we have to be responsible. Okay? Sounded like this sermon, but that's my story, and I'm sticking with it. Any questions? I have 5 minutes, I've been told. Yeah. It's okay. We can't do banking because we're federally illegal. Because we're a Schedule I drug. So the way the government looks at cannabis is the same classification as heroin and cocaine and all the other. And the way they rank it is the likelihood of being addicted to the drug. So it's just everybody realizes there's no way it should be a Schedule I drug. But because we can't use the federal banking system. We can't list on the federal stock exchanges. We can't use credit cards because they preclude that. And I think that's just ridiculous. Yeah. How come we can't use the banking system? And there's also a discussion going on between the state programs, because now we have 21 states that have programs, but we're federally illegal. So they've got to reconcile that too. Like, right. Nothing makes sense. That's the whole point. So there is a piece of legislation called the States Act, which would set up cannabis like alcohol. I don't know if you know, but in the U.S., alcohol is state regulated. There's a federal program, but it's state regulated. Oh, you work with Total Wine? Yeah, so then you know how it works. So there is a piece of legislation to say we should allow that, right, which is let's let the states run their programs, but let's remove the federal limitations. But a lot of it is still being worked out, and nobody really knows what the future holds for cannabis. So, again, this is a great opportunity because this is legal. Now, the issue, with a lot of the products here is the FDA has not yet come down with a position on being able to include any hemp-based products in food products. As you know, right? CBD is federally, under the FDA, illegal. You can't eat a gummy, technically, with CBD in it because of the drug Epidiolex. It's one drug, and it's a regulated drug under the FDA, and you can't put regulated drugs into food products. But that's going to get resolved. Hopefully, people are putting pressure on the FDA to resolve them. They've been sending out warning letters for people who make claims. They haven't really enforced. They've never shut anybody down, anybody here, down for selling CBD products. But they need to take a position. That's another one of these things that's inconsistent. And if they do that in the unregulated market, then my point is, well, how do they let them sell it in the regulated market? There's no way they're setting down gummies in every single state under dispensaries. So they're in a catch-22 position, because they can't say you can't put THC or CBD into a gummy for non-regulated markets, but say you could do it in a regulated market, because it would be the same risk to people's health one way or the other, right? Yeah. Yeah, today on the regulated cannabis side, the question is, if everything's in this regulated in the state market, how will that impact the 2023 Farm Bill? And the difference is marijuana versus hemp. The Farm Bill deals with hemp, and all the regulated markets deal with marijuana, which is over 0.3% cannabis, THC in the cannabis. So marijuana is over 0.3. Yeah, typically, marijuana would be 12 to 30% THC in flower. So that's state level programming. The federal Farm Bill is a federal act, which is the beauty of it, means there is no state override. It's legal to sell hemp everywhere because it's a federal program. Now, some states are limiting how many milligrams of THC, like Minnesota. Minnesota is a great example of somebody who leapfrogged the whole industry and created a cannabis program based on hemp. But you can only include 5 milligrams in the products. But it's popping up everywhere. You could buy THC beverages in bars. You could buy gummies in convenience stores and stuff like that. Sorry, is that for me? Are they trying to get me off stage? Yeah, they are. Okay, listen, I'm here. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer any questions you have. I'll stand over on the side. So I've been at it for about 3-4 years now in the cannabis industry, so I'll share whatever I learned. Okay, thanks for coming, guys.